Oklahoma State and Kansas State aren't exactly identical, although you could argue they should be or could be. This is the Moral Land Grant University Big 12 Bowl. And this time, we got somebody who knows a little bit more about what's happening in Manhattan, right around the corner.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stillwell. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You know we're available on every single podcasting platform, visually as well on YouTube. Find me on Twitter at AllDayOState. Today we have a special guest, somebody that I think we could say is pretty legendary. He wears a lot of purple. He's from the Purple Powercat State, and he's an alum. Been in the game since 1988, worked for the Salina Journal, did some stuff as well for the Wichita Eagle, has been all over Kansas State, co-host on a radio show, as well as the publisher and the main man with the plan for the Go Powercat. Ladies and gentlemen, help me bring on the show today Tim Fitzgerald. How are we feeling today, my guy?
I am good, and I've got the dogs in the studio today, so we could have some fireworks if the postman shows up early. It could get great.
You know what? Fireworks are okay for now, because from an offensive perspective, as a Cowboy fan, I can't say that I'm expecting a whole lot of fireworks this Friday. That does sound weird to say, but other than the madness that is your defense, because ranking top 10 nationally in multiple defensive categories has got to be kind of a breath of fresh air as you come into Stillwater, where K-State typically has some issues. Yep. But before we kind of jump into that, I just wanted to hammer away at the fact that I am jealous, okay? But could you not agree that a lot of Oklahoma State fans have the right to be envious? Because if you would have said in 2021, after we came up so short of a Big 12 title, right? We had we have a logo too, the big comeback against Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, and then you take into consideration OU and Texas are out. Nobody in the Big 12 over the last 15 years has more W's, not named OU, right? So Oklahoma State should be in a position to play for a Big 12 title again in 2022, and you guys won it, right? We should be in a position of strength going into not only the new Big 12, but also the new Big 12 as one of the teams at the top, right? Oklahoma State, Kansas State, TCU, Utah, BYU. These are teams that should be at the top no matter what. And here my Cowboys are flailing at the bottom. This game is like our life raft to try to grasp some semblance of a positive season. How has Oklahoma State come to this level since 2021, and Kansas State is where we're supposed to be? How did this happen, Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yeah. Isn't it crazy? I mean, the national narrative was Oklahoma State was going to lead the new Big 12. And, then they add Utah, and you've BYU. You've got some programs out there that could, over the long term, make a lot of noise, UCF included. And certainly those Texas schools always have a recruiting advantage. And that is when Mike Gundy decides to go on a mental break. I mean, look, you can talk about a bunch of things going wrong, but me as an outsider, I simply see a guy who has rapidly gone from I'm a man 40 to I'm a man and I'm 90 and I don't want to change. He's screaming at the clouds about the NIL and the portal, and the players don't hear a coach that is pushing back against the system. They hear a coach pushing back against them. And I don't know how you manage a locker room at that point. I find the whole thing baffling. It's almost self-destructive. He's got some good coaches. He's decided, I guess, since he was a great quarterback, he can turn anyone into a great quarterback, and that isn't happening. It's a mess. And you're right. By winning last year's Big 12 title, and if Kansas State can stay on course, this season. They should be back in Arlington, or at least in a tie to be back in Arlington. We'll see how the tiebreakers go if they lose at Texas. And you're right. If they go back to the championship game, win or lose, they will have the appearance as the dominant program from the existing schools as we move into the new 16, Big 16, whatever it's going to be.
Well, and you know what, man? I unfortunately think you hit the nail on the head, right? You're hearing some stuff, right? Gundy was a little bit more absent after he thought this thing was a well-oiled machine. And as I've said before, you know what? He was probably right. You could have handled this thing with the top-down CEO style of approach without the NIL, without the transfer market. That is what kind of screwed the pooch, in my personal opinion, for Gundy. So let me ask you this. You were there from the Snyder transition to Ron Prince. You were there for the, oh crap, Snyder needs to save Ron Prince. And then you were there from the peaceful transition of power that seems to be from Snyder to Chris Klieman. Kudos, by the way. K-State is absolutely hitting home runs in the hiring department. Your baseball program, I think, got a steal, right, from another Big 12 school that let somebody go a little bit too early. Your basketball program is ascending insanely up. You cannot miss when it comes to hiring. And then Chris Klieman is like Bill Snyder 2.0. So in all of these transitional periods, kind of give us a diagram. What could you see during these times? Like, could you see that there was going to be a transition to Ron Prince? Was it inevitable? Did it appear to be coming that way with Snyder losing a little bit of his fastball? And then talk us out of the retransition back into Snyder to Klieman.
Well, let's discuss this, because there's so many parallels here with what happened at K-State with Bill Snyder and what I see happening at Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy. And I find it fascinating that we're seeing coaches just kind of, you said, lose their fastball, but it's almost like they lose their desire to pitch. And it's for Kansas State, it was this. If you recall your K-State history, in 2003, K-State won the Big 12 title in a stunning upset of that other school in Oklahoma. That was at the time regarded as the greatest college football team of all time. And they beat them 35-7.
I had it recorded and I watched it every time an OU friend came over. Oh yeah, dude. Darren Sproles was my guy.
That was a really good team. They just hit a lot of injuries in the midseason. They had some losses from those injuries. They were playing without Roberson or Sproles at one point. Anyhow, you go to the Fiesta Bowl. It's a huge setting. You're going to play Ohio State. This could be a great opportunity for the program. And then this random sexual assault allegation pops up with L. Roberson. That was quickly shot down, but you had John Saunders from ABC, ESPN talking about L. Roberson's been arrested for rape, which was untrue. K-State ended up playing him because they had cleared him by the time they talked to everyone. They had private investigators in this, and it was clear that this was just kind of a made-up allegation. I still wonder if there wasn't gamblers involved in that. And Roberson was cleared to play, but it was a huge distraction for the program. At the bottom line of the whole situation, L didn't do anything illegal, but he did do things that put the program in a bad light. They violated curfew. They had girls in the room. They did all this stuff. And it seemed to distract Bill Snyder to the point where he's kind of shut down recruiting. And if you're familiar with the K-State recruiting back then, remember they're doing so much junior college recruiting that everyone thought was so unsavory and dirty. Right. And back then you could wait till after your bowl game to really kind of put your teeth into recruiting all the way. Bill Snyder proved it, and he didn't do that. And you turn around in 2004, they have a losing season. 2005, another losing season, and he decides to step away because he had kind of lost that inspiration. And he knew that. And I see that with Mike Gundy. I don't know if he'll step away because of that contract is so nice. But soon after stepping away, Bill Snyder kind of regretted it and tried to come back. But at that point, they'd moved on with the interviews. They ended up with Ron Prince. That's a whole different side story that was messy and at the end ugly. And he self-destructed because he has no personal self-control. Brilliant football coach. He really is a brilliant mind, but he is a mess as a human being. His first staff, he had James Franklin as his offensive coordinator, Penn State's head coach. He had Raheem Morris, who went on to be the Buccaneers coach, as his defensive coordinator. And there was other guys on the staff that, if you go back and look at the 2006 Ron Prince staff, there's guys littered all over major college football that were on his staff, and they all quit because the guy's a nut job. So Bill Snyder steps back in a weird situation in which they were courting Gary Patterson. I reported Gary Patterson was going to be the coach because I was getting stuff from the AD's angle. Little did I know that John Weefald, the president, was actually doing the hiring. He hadn't told the AD, but he was bringing back Snyder.
Gotcha.
And Snyder rolls in, and immediately he's back to himself. He really was. He kind of, had his energy back and put it back together in a different way. He was much more conservative as Snyder 2.0 than Snyder 1.0, who was running the spread before the spread was a thing, and then invented the Wildcat and the entire run option, read option stuff that K-State was doing with Michael Bishop. And he comes back and he becomes kind of boring in the way he attacks defenses with his offense and pretty predictable with the quarterback run game. Eventually that kind of sputters out. And I'm really thankful that Coach retired or was pushed into retirement at that time, because, Klieman comes in 2019 and the pandemic hits the next year. First of all, you would have been incredibly worried about your head coach at his age in upper 70s, trying to coach through a pandemic. But then all the stuff that went on, he didn't like distractions. So I can't imagine how he would have handled the NIL and the transfer portal, because he was so opposed to guys transferring. It would have just crushed him. It would have been a mess. And I feel like that mess has been bequeathed to Oklahoma State, because now we see a much younger man acting like the old man, screaming at the clouds about stuff he can't control.
Man, I knew, Fitzy, I knew I was going to find a way to ask you that question, and you were going to do nothing other than hit a home run with it. So I greatly appreciate it. And guys, you got to realize there's no way you can hit a home run in anything if you cannot get to your destination, which is precisely why today we got to talk about eBay Motors. You got to be in the game, and to be in the game, you got to be pretty squared away in that department. So make sure that you're getting your ride, the drive, the patience, everything that you need out of your vehicle. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kit, LED headlights, whatever. If you're ready to speed and have some more power, have some more style, it doesn't matter. eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Get them dollar bills rocking and rolling, because eBay Motors provides you with the ability to burn rubber, not cash. All the parts that you're going to need, all the prices you're going to want. Easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that home run. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Again, that is ebaymotors.com. Go there now to make sure you're squared away. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit is available to U.S. customers, so go get it rocking and rolling now. All right, buddy. So let's jump back into the fold here. We were talking a little bit off air about Chris Klieman's most recent interview, in which you were able to ask him some pretty awesome questions. So thank you for that. But one of the things I found pretty intriguing was he mentioned not only is he taking this bye week as a time to get some of the youth more developed, right? The freshmen, he emphasized that. But another thing he emphasized was, you guys have got some guys back defensively that are going to allow you to be pretty healthy. And not that anything is going to be comparable to losing Daniel Green. Like, dude, that guy is a bad mamma jamma. And then Asa Newsom, who I know was a freshman that people thought very, very, very highly of. But Chris Klieman mentioned some guys. I remember one of the ones that he mentioned, getting a little bit more into things right now was, what was his name? Well, maybe you can help me out. Well, what are some of the linebackers that we know are Bo Palmer? Is that right?
Bo Palmer's a walk-on. He'll back up a true freshman, Austin Romaine, at middle linebacker. So you go from a 6-year senior in Daniel Green. And as an aside, I've never covered a young man who's evolved more as a college athlete than Daniel Green. He was really rough around the edges when he arrived 6 years ago under Snyder from Portland. He was a 4-star that had some academic issues. Now he's a really good student, a thoughtful, caring young man, and he came back because he loves the football program, and he was injured all the last season, played through it and didn't play that well. He wanted a healthy season, and this is what happens. He tears a pec muscle on a sack, and he's lost for the year. So they went to Austin Romaine, their true freshman. One of the first plays of the UCF game, he took the wrong gap and a guy went up the middle for about 50 yards. So that didn't work out too well, but he settled in a little bit. And they got back Jake Clifton, a backup linebacker from injury.
Maybe that was it. Okay.
Yeah, in a game early. And so he was able to fill in a little bit. He wasn't real good in the middle, but he will play all three spots. He's essentially backing up all three linebackers. And Austin Moore at one linebacker, and Desmond Purnell at the other outside linebacker. These guys have been playing really well. They're helping out Austin Romaine settle in. But that is some place where Oklahoma State might try to attack to get him a little confused. They've had some issues on the back end of the defense. At the end of the day, though, this is really good defense.
There you go. That's the key, man. You know, I'm a film junkie, right? I'm one of those guys that'll just sit for hours and hours. And there's not a lot of deficiencies with K-State. You just mentioned having a little bit of an A-gap responsibility whenever you had some new guys. But since then, like you said, you've narrowed it down. And if you take out like 7 runs all year, you guys are averaging 1.8 yards a carry. Like we're not going to be running it all over on you guys, right? The biggest deficiencies I could find in film are when you guys go to cover 2, you leave the middle third open quite a bit. And without Daniel Green being able to pull like the Tampa 2 linebacker to take back that middle third, that seems to be open a decent amount deep, and the outside deep flats. Other than that, man, everything underneath Kansas State is absolutely smothering. The A and B gaps, you guys seamlessly transition. There's a little bit of maybe maneuverability on your C gap contained guys, but all in all, man, this defense is very impressive, which is why you're number 6 in America in tackles for loss. You're top 10 in, I think, sacks. And you're also top 10 in another defensive efficiency rating. It might have been third down. So statistically, like if we're trying to go 3-4 yards at a time, it's not going to go well.
No,
it's not going to go well. But that's the thing is that you guys have a bye week. I'm sure that you guys can see on film your deficiencies are shots deep and outside. So I'm sure you're going to have some things to cover up some of that. That's why I think this game is going to be interesting.
Yeah, they've got some new people on the back end that have missed signals, gotten confused, not trusted what they're seeing, and not applied what they see in practice to the games. And you've seen some explosives, particularly through the air. They got just absolutely torched by a pitch back and deep pass that Joe Klanderman, the defense coordinator, he said, I'm still angry. So it's the explosives have got him pretty good. The last 3 games, after holding SEMO to 6 yards rushing in the first game, they've done a great job except one play. They give up 1 explosive run per game against Troy, Missouri, and UCF, and it skewed the stats horribly. But as I told people at the start of the season, this pass rush for Kansas State, even though Felix Anudike-Uzama went on to be a first-round draft pick, is still going to be effective. Khalid Duke moved back from linebacker to defensive end. And I always have to remind people that a couple years ago, he was the guy. And then he got hurt, and this Felix guy stepped in his place, and that's what happened. And now Khalid is back. He's got 4 sacks this season in 4 games. Nate Matlack, who Coach loves to call Matt Locke, for some reason, is maybe that shows what TV program he's watching late at night. But he's healthy this year. He played injured last year also. He's healthy. And of course, Brendan Mott, always surprises people when I say this. He's the leading returning sack statistic player. How do you say that? In the Big 12 from last year. He came back with 6 sacks. So they're really good. And Uso, the big nose tackle for K-State, is kind of just dominating the middle, and they've been better in the depth of defensive tackle than any of us expected. So this has been a really good run defense, but they have given up shots. They have given up yak yardage like crazy. Luther Burden from Missouri absolutely made a living catching the ball and just running through the defense. It was like one of those kids that's a lot better in flag football, and he just runs by everyone. That's what Luther Burden did to K-State. It was unbelievable. So,
well, and Troy had this Lewis receiver, number 6.
Yeah.
But in his defense, that Lewis guy, he's a Big 12 starting wide receiver. He has no business at Troy, and this is no disrespect to Troy, but that dude, you can tell he's a surefire starting D1 caliber dude. How they have him, I don't know. But yeah, man, it's going to take a Herculean effort by some of our wide receivers, but there's gaps. There's areas we can exploit. And so it comes down to me is who's going to be hungrier, because even Chris Klieman said the difficulty with going to Stillwater is always losing the point of attack. The last 2 losses they've taken in Stillwater, he said we didn't win up front, right? Now, I don't know that Oklahoma State's going to win per se up front, but don't you think there's something to be said about just physically being prepared to be more aggressive, to out punch your foe in the throat repeatedly?
Yeah. I mean, the off week affords Oklahoma State an opportunity to mend the locker room, because I feel like a lot of this is locker room,
Right.
and try to get everyone on the same page, and maybe put some stuff in that's going to catch K-State completely off guard on both sides of the ball, and
Right.
give them trouble and knock them off their game. It's a great opportunity. K-State's focus, as you mentioned, has been getting healthy and getting the young guys ready to fill in, because 8 straight weeks, Oklahoma State's doing the same thing, I believe. 8 straight weeks of Big 12 football will beat the crap out of your roster. You better have young guys ready to step in.
Yes, the rotation of madness is what we're personally affectionately calling it. I don't plan on seeing a bunch of rotations, thank goodness, this coming Friday and Boone Pickens. All right, so we'll kind of segue here. When it comes to Kansas State, still has a very, very good opportunity to vie for that top kind of who's going to play one of the daggone dumb A Red River schools. It can't be both of them, okay? I think we can all understand that the landscape is what it is, and it would be pretty crazy for one of those two not to make it in, which is fine. That means everyone in the world's either going to be K-State fans or West Virginia fans or TC fans, whomever it may be. But as that race continues to kind of take shape, do you think this is a game where, although Kansas State should win, right? There's not much on paper that says otherwise. Do you think this is an opportunity that Oklahoma State could find some wrinkles on both sides of the ball enough to get Kansas State caught off guard?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Oklahoma State's got plenty of talent. The issue isn't talent. Maybe the issue is talent at quarterback. But overall, they've got the dudes. Let's put it this way. I think the greatest blessing to Oklahoma State this season is the transfer portal rule changes. That now they now have windows. You only have limited times when you can go into the transfer portal. Just a couple of years ago, you can go in. I could quit the team tomorrow and be in the portal the next day. And it was.
Yeah.
I wonder how many guys from Oklahoma State would have already done that if that was on paper for them to do that, and that could wreck the program. Which I'm glad the NCAA changed the rule, because that's just craziness. You can quit in the middle of the season and go into a portal. But my 2 thoughts are. First of all, if you're Oklahoma State's locker room, and someone in that locker room's got to say, look, you're not bought in here, but you want to buy in somewhere else, you better put something on film that will show the coaches that you still want to play football and you still want to compete, at least for your own dignity. And number 2, if everything goes wrong with Oklahoma State and a bunch of guys transfer, these dudes will find homes at Power 5 schools. This isn't a lack of talent issue. There's dudes on this team.
Right.
And 2, if you're Oklahoma State, hell, you can just go out and reload with the transfer portal. If you have a coach that will do that, and that's the problem with Oklahoma State, is Gundy's got to change or leave. He's just got, they're going to have, they're not going to, I don't see how they can fire him with that contract, but man, they're going to have to sit him down and say, either you change radically or we're going to do something different. I don't know how we're going to do it. I think they're going to have to buy him out in some way, but not fire him totally.
There's a lot of things that kind of permeate around, and one of the newest ones is there is in fact an exit strategy for Gundy by 2026. Now, what that looks like, who knows? Don't know if it's 100%, but yeah, man, I almost feel like it's just I hate to say it's too late, but in this transfer NIL era, if you go too far backwards, there's teams like Texas Tech and UCF that are going to be right in that middle ground that are ready to pounce. And then if you don't have Texas money to dig yourself out of it, it's a scary proposition. All right. So since we got you cornered here, does Kansas State get the dub in Stillwater and continue their trajectory towards playing for a Big 12 title, number 1?
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned at the top is they've hired another Bill Snyder, and their styles are much different. The way they manage their locker room, he's much more open to the portal. Yeah, he's a little reluctant with the NIL too and what it means, but he,
Right.
he plays the game.
Right.
Um, but one of the things he does do that replicates Bill Snyder is he figures out teams. He figures them out. It might take him a couple years. It did with Oklahoma State, did with Baylor. But he figures them out and then starts understanding how to beat those teams. That's something Bill Snyder did. And they've had these baffling non-conference losses. You go back last year, it was Tulane, who turned out to be really good, but you still didn't
Yes.
expect to lose to them. You had to open the door, and they did. They lost at Missouri, who I think is a pretty good team, but K-State still should have won that game. They did not play well, and they lost on the
Yes.
last second field goal. You go back to pandemic, they lost to Arkansas State at home. So he has those sticking out there that kind of distract you. But in conference, this guy kind of figures teams out and gets it going. And this will be a big test for that. If he can go down there and start to replicate some of the things they did last year. They're not winning 48-0, but I do think K-State is at least 2 touchdowns better.
That's fair. That seems to be a very fair analysis proposition. And then obviously the second part is, do you think K-State or West Virginia or has the ability to kind of peak in that next spot to play one of
Yeah.
the two the hated schools?
Yeah. Yeah. The Red River rivalry, which I hate saying, by the way, is really important. It really is.
It is.
And if you're Kansas State, you need Texas to win. For the simple reason that if Oklahoma wins this game, they're in the driver's seat because we've all seen Oklahoma's schedule. It's an
Yes,
absolute
100%.
joke and travesty. And I give them credit that they had Georgia scheduled and they had to get that game off the I get all that, but they still played no Power Fives. They have played nobody this year. And if they somehow beat Texas and then go back to their nobody schedule, they're going to roll. And they could be the worst unbeaten team in college football history if they beat Texas. So if you're Kansas State, you need Texas to win. And I think, the realist in all of us says going to Austin against this Texas team is going to be tough for K-State. That's 5 weeks away. Oklahoma
Yeah.
State at Tech, TCU, and Houston and Manhattan. Those are winnable games, but you got to go win them. And if you put yourself in that position, you get to the other side, you still got Baylor, Kansas, and Lawrence, which oddly is maybe K-State's second toughest game this season in the conference. And then you close it up with Iowa State. These are all winnable, so winnable outside of Texas. The problem is you get to Oklahoma, and if they lose this game, you could both end up at 8-1 with losses to Texas. I broke this down in my daily delivery video today, and it turns into an absolute mess because you'll have all your common opponents will have the same outcome, win or loss. You'll end up at a conference winning percentage criteria, who you played, which, I would think would be advantage K-State, but apparently right now it's advantage Oklahoma. And then you get down to the criteria of the Missouri loss could decide this for K-State, which is crazy because Oklahoma played nobody in the non-conference. So there's no way that Oklahoma, I don't see it, is going to lose 2 games if they beat Texas. I just don't see it. And that would mean K-State would have to go to Austin and beat Texas. And that's
You know
tough.
what? I like it. That's a really, really, really good breakdown. That's a darn good breakdown. You know what? I'll say 34-24. I do think K-State will win the game. I do think we'll have enough time to add enough wrinkles to make it pretty intriguing and interesting. But before we let you skedaddle on off of here, brother, why don't you let the fine people out there how they can find you, how they can get a hold of you, how they can see you work your magic.
Well, I'm on the 24/7 Sports Network for Kansas State. Go Powercat. But check out our Go Powercat channel. We do daily videos, do a lot of K-State content, but I also address Big 12 stuff like I did today with the tiebreaker breakdown and some other things. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about Pat McAfee and that ESPN mess as I do a game day video that has nothing to do with the game. But come check us out. Go follow that Go Powercat channel. It helps us out quite a bit.
I love it. Tim, you're a legend. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for your insight, sir. We'll have to do this one again. Thank you very much, buddy. All righty, y'all. I think that's probably all we're gonna have for this one right here. We'll be going live post game tomorrow. Make sure you check us out for that. Other than that, you know the drill. I love you. God bless. Go Pokes, and thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. All righty. Later, taters.